In the towering glass and steel complex of one of the world's most powerful corporations, every decision carried the weight of millions, sometimes billions. The CEO, a man named Jonathan Mercer, had built his empire from the ground up. Charismatic, brilliant, and fiercely ambitious, Mercer had become a figure whose influence stretched across continents, shaping markets and inspiring leaders. Yet, for all his brilliance, there was a flaw, a blind spot that could have cost him his life and the stability of his company. That flaw was about to collide with fate in a way no one could have predicted. It was a late autumn afternoon when the security guard, Michael Reyes, noticed something unusual. Michael had been with the corporation for over a decade, a steadfast presence among the high-powered executives and fast-moving employees. His uniform was always immaculate, his posture rigid, his eyes sharp. He had seen crises, minor scandals, and near accidents, but something about that particular day felt different. Jonathan Mercer was scheduled to sign off on a high-stakes acquisition, a deal that could reshape the company's future. Documents were laid out in the CEO's office, and the board of directors awaited his signature. Michael, stationed at the entrance, observed the room with the practiced vigilance of someone who had spent years reading human behavior. And then, he noticed it. A small, seemingly insignificant detail that no one else had. The documents Mercer was about to sign contained a clause that was dangerously flawed. If executed, it could trigger a chain of events leading not just to financial ruin, but to legal ramifications that might destroy the company and, more alarmingly, put Mercer in personal jeopardy. Michael knew he had to act, but stopping a man like Mercer in front of the board was no small task. Security guards were rarely consulted in corporate decision-making, and challenging a CEO could be career suicide. Yet Michael's instincts screamed at him that this was no ordinary error. It was a fatal one. As Mercer reached for his pen, Michael stepped forward, his voice firm but calm. "Sir, I don't mean to interrupt, but I need you to reconsider these documents." The room froze. Heads turned. The board members exchanged incredulous looks. A security guard? Questioning the CEO? Mercer paused, eyes narrowing, a mixture of curiosity and irritation flickering across his face. "And why exactly should I reconsider, Mr. Reyes?" Michael explained what he had observed, highlighting the dangerous clause and the potential consequences of signing it. He spoke with clarity, precision, and an almost uncanny understanding of the legal and financial implications. At first, Mercer dismissed him, a faint smirk playing on his lips. He had dealt with naysayers before, lawyers, analysts, even board members. But a security guard? That was unprecedented. But Michael's calm persistence, coupled with the undeniable logic of his warnings, forced Mercer to pause. He read the clause again, scrutinizing the fine print. And then, slowly, the realization dawned. The mistake was catastrophic. Mercer had been moments away from signing a document that could have spiraled into disaster. Michael's intervention didn't just prevent a corporate catastrophe, it saved lives. The flawed clause, if enacted, could have triggered lawsuits, bankruptcies, and even criminal investigations. The deal was halted, corrected, and renegotiated, ultimately securing the company's future and solidifying Mercer's reputation as a strategic visionary. News of the incident spread quietly first within the walls of the corporation and then outward. Michael Reyes, the security guard, became a symbol of vigilance, courage, and the profound impact of paying attention when it mattered most. Over the following months, the company implemented new checks and balances, acknowledging the near miss and ensuring that such a fatal mistake could never occur again. Michael was offered promotions, accolades, and public recognition, yet he remained humble. His satisfaction came not from the attention, but from knowing that his observation and courage had prevented a disaster of unimaginable scale. He often reflected on the incident quietly, during late-night patrols and moments of solitude. The lesson was clear. No matter one's position or title, attentiveness, courage, and the willingness to speak up can change the course of history. As the weeks passed, the story of Michael Reyes's intervention became something of a whispered legend among the employees. Office corridors buzzed with speculation. Board members exchanged cautious glances when he walked by, and yet Michael carried on with the quiet professionalism that had defined his career. He did not crave recognition. For him, vigilance was not a job. It was a responsibility. Michael's day began long before the city stirred awake. By 6 in the morning, he was already making rounds, checking security systems, inspecting access points, and reviewing any anomalies in visitor logs. It was routine work, but Michael approached it like a chess grandmaster, anticipating moves, predicting threats, and always observing. The same meticulous eye that had caught the dangerous clause in the CEO's document was the same eye that now scanned every corner of the sprawling corporate complex. Jonathan Mercer, on the other hand, was a man who thrived on speed. Decisions came fast, calls were returned faster, and the pressure of maintaining a billion-dollar empire weighed on him daily. Mercer was brilliant, no doubt, but his brilliance sometimes made him blind to small details, the kind that could and often did spell disaster. His reliance on advisors was absolute, yet in that reliance lay vulnerability. The near catastrophe had shaken him more than he cared to admit. He had been a CEO who believed he was infallible, yet a security guard, a man he had barely acknowledged before, had stopped him from signing away not just millions, but the company's future. Mercer found himself reflecting on the incident more than he should have. He considered the human element in a world dominated by numbers, analytics, and spreadsheets. There were lessons in humility that no executive seminar could teach. One evening, as the city lights shimmered against the dark glass facade of the corporate tower, Mercer found himself walking the halls alone, a rare occurrence in his otherwise tightly scheduled life. He passed Michael on his routine patrol and stopped. "You know," Mercer said, his voice softer than usual, "you saved more than the company. You reminded me that even the smallest oversight can be catastrophic." Michael paused, slightly uncomfortable with the attention. "I was just doing my job, sir." "No," Mercer said, shaking his head. "This was more than a job. You acted when everyone else would have stayed silent. That takes courage." Their conversation was brief, but it marked a turning point. Mercer began to see Michael not just as a guard, but as an ally, a sentinel whose insight went beyond security cameras and key cards. He realized that true leadership involved listening to those whose voices were often ignored and acknowledging wisdom wherever it came from. Weeks later, the corporation faced another critical juncture, a negotiation that would determine the fate of one of its major international projects. Mercer was confident as always, yet a part of him remained wary. He had learned that confidence without caution could be dangerous. Michael, meanwhile, observed the preparations closely. He was not a participant in the negotiations, but his understanding of human behavior and his experience in high-stakes environments allowed him to anticipate potential pitfalls. During a late-night review of security footage, emails, and internal communications, Michael noticed something odd. An unverified document had slipped into the briefing materials. It was subtle, a single paragraph buried in a 50-page report, but it contained misleading information that, if acted upon, could have compromised the negotiations. He brought it immediately to Mercer's attention. The CEO, now wary yet trusting, of Michael's instincts, leaned over the desk. "Show me," he said. Michael explained the discrepancy in detail, highlighting the chain of miscommunication that had allowed it to appear in the briefing. Mercer's eyes narrowed as he read, and, for the first time in years, he hesitated before making a corporate decision. The room, usually a theater of decisive action, held a tense silence as Mercer processed the revelation. By acting on Michael's observation, Mercer avoided a blunder that could have cost millions, if not more. The negotiations proceeded smoothly, and the project secured a critical foothold in a competitive market. Once again, the security guard had not just prevented disaster, he had actively contributed to the corporation's success. Word of Michael's interventions began to reach the upper echelons of the corporate world. Other executives, initially skeptical of his role, began to understand that he was not merely enforcing rules or monitoring entrances. He was an observer, a strategist, and, in moments of crisis, a guardian. Invitations to meetings, consultations, and even strategy sessions began to come his way, not as a ceremonial gesture, but because his insight was valuable. Michael's approach was methodical. He never imposed himself. He observed first, understood context second, and acted only when the situation demanded. This method earned him respect not just from Mercer, but from the entire leadership team. They realized that vigilance could come in many forms, and that wisdom often existed in unexpected places.